and welcome to the Moffitt Method Podcast, where we dive deep into the world of strength and conditioning and pushing the limits of athletic performance with your host, Joe Ryan. Each week, we'll explore the strategies, tactics, and innovations that make athletes stronger, coaches smarter, and the sports we love even more thrilling. Whether you're a coach, an athlete, or just a fan of the game, we've got something for you. We'll be talking to some of the brightest minds in the industry, sharing their insights and experiences, and uncovering the methods behind the madness of high-performance sports. So tune in, turn up the volume, and let's get ready to learn, grow, and be inspired. This is the Moffitt Method Podcast.
Today, we're joined by Coach Dan Mullins, a performance specialist from Cartersville, Georgia, with a PhD in exercise science. Coach Mullins currently serves both the high school and middle school programs at Cartersville, bringing over 12 years of coaching experience in the weight room and on the football field. He began his career as a personal trainer before moving into the classroom as a science teacher, where he also launched his coaching journey in football and strength and conditioning. His path includes an internship at the University of Cincinnati with the football strength staff, as well as serving as a defensive coordinator at Little Miami High School in Ohio. Now, he coaches outside linebackers at Cartersville High School while continuing to develop athletes through strength and performance training. In 2024, Coach Mullins was honored as the NHSSCA Georgia State Coach of the Year, a testament to the impact he's making on his athletes and community. His own athletic journey includes competing in Division II basketball before walking onto the football team. He is also an ambassador for Huddle's Titan GPS line, working to support coaches to ensure they get the most out of their sports performance program. Coach Mullins' mission is clear: to use football and the weight room as vehicles to develop the next generation, equipping athletes not only to perform on the field, but also to thrive in life. Coach Dan Mullins, man, it's great to have you on, especially after a little technical difficulties.
It's 100% my fault. I'm sorry. My home Wi-Fi network needs a boost.
Coach, I think we're even now. It's 1-1. The first time we tried to do this, the old geography teacher in me forgot about time zones and forgot Georgia was an hour ahead.
Well, I'm glad I could pay you back then.
Yeah, man, it happens. So, how's things going today, man?
Good. We're rolling. We play tomorrow night and kind of have reached the point in the week where everybody's kind of itching, ready to go, and it's a big one this week for us. We got a big time North Georgia rivalry, so looking forward to it.
Yeah, and dude, it's something. So here at my school, we're only in our second week for doing our No Sweat Wednesdays. Something you helped put me on here and that I was able to talk our head coach into. And I noticed this morning, I literally, right before I walked in here to start this, was just telling our head coach, kids are itching, man. Like, that's going to be, in the beginning, I'm sure you went through the same thing. Right now, our kids are still in the mindset that walkthrough already happened. We're ready to play. Whereas we still got work to do. We still got to lock back in. We still got an hour practice today of team situation that we got to handle.
Oh, yeah. And one of the things that I noticed is that it just really lets guys, like you said, separate and have an additional day of preparation rather than just looking at Thursday as like something a box that they've just got to check. It allows them to really focus in on the details and fine tune the game plan and their preparation into it, and really lets us go out there. We're really chomping on the bit by Fridays when we can implement Wednesdays correctly.
Yeah, man. And in 2 weeks of doing it, man, we've been out before 4:00 both times, and we're at home with our families. And I think that's just, I can already feel the difference as far as a coach goes, like recharging the batteries and able to have a little bit more time at home and a little bit more time to rest and relax.
Yeah. Your emotional battery, your mental battery is better, and your pump on Friday is a little bit better too.
Yeah.
That pregame pump hits a little different.
Absolutely, man. So look, while we got you in, man, tell the listeners a little bit about you, your background, how you kind of got to where you're at.
Yeah, man. Well, definitely grateful to a lot of people in my life that have poured into me with absolutely no reason to really do so. I was a subpar athlete growing up in my career. I was never really one of the better athletes on any team I played for. I just always worked really hard and knew what to do, I guess, if that makes sense. Like I knew what the play calls were. I knew all the situations of what I should do in given situations and scenarios. So that really played dividends for me. Ended up playing college basketball at the Division II level, and they let me walk on to the football team too. This was pre-COVID and pre-transfer portal the way that it is now. So the Division II corners were like 5'7", 5'6", and not what they are now. So when you had a 6'2", 6'3" receiver, it kind of was a little bit different. It was a mismatch, and I wasn't really good. Again, I kind of went in just to block or just as like a decoy, and was definitely more of a practice player than anything. So it wasn't that I did anything overly well, but I wasn't prepared for kind of the social emotional aspect of college and the academic side of college. And so after my freshman year, I dropped out and was kind of kicked out because I had a 1.9 GPA, and that doesn't really bode well for college athletics and scholarships. So didn't handle my business. Yeah, didn't handle business. So, but really fell in love with the weight room during that time. That was my first experience with an actual strength coach. Was when I got to college and loved it and loved everything about it. Ended up getting my personal training certification. Started training at a small gym in Cincinnati, and that's where I ended up meeting my wife, and kind of one thing led to another, and working through a career on that aspect. Was into sales and management and personal training, and then got to the point where I was just working way too much. I was working 70 hours a week. My wife and I had our first kid, and wanted to go back to school. And by this point, I really missed the game of football, missed athletics in general, and kind of that camaraderie. I was telling some of my guys the other day, some of my players, after football ends, whether that's high school or college, professional, like after football ends, it's really hard to find that brotherhood, that feeling of connection again. And so I was really missing that. So I went back to school to be a teacher, and was teaching to teach high school science, and started coaching right away. And during this time, I was powerlifting quite a bit and fell in love with that and learned a ton, met a lot of really, really cool people. And then once I graduated, started teaching and coaching, and eventually did a internship at the University of Cincinnati under Coach Brady Collins, who was with Coach Fickle and staff when they made it to the college football playoff. So spent a couple months leading into that summer before they went to the college football final, and was an unbelievable experience. And that kind of parlayed its way into making my way to Georgia.
Yeah. See, there's this big old knock on powerlifters, just meatheads, right? But shoot, we got PhD powerlifters in here that know what's going on, and old Dr. Dan over here.
I'm just stubborn, man. That's all it is. So when I had kids, now we have 3 kids now, and I was the first person in my family to graduate from college, and just wanted my kids to really not have any excuses. Like I didn't want them to say like, have any of those barriers. So for me to continue pushing through was really just for them, so that they could say, hey, whatever I want to do, whether it's teaching or whether it's nursing or being an actual doctor, like an MD, not a PhD, lawyer, whatever they want to do, they can do it. And then I'd be lying if I didn't say it was for the money too. So.
Yeah, no, that's always a perk, right? We always say we never get paid enough, and our paychecks sometimes come in a different form than actual, money. But that's awesome. So you got into it as far as, playing college athletics, playing D2 ball, and believe me, man, that D2 life is not made for everyone, right? I mean, I played D2 football, and you got to really love it to play D2, man. It's those are your real, like, passionate players. And it's a little bit different a ball game than playing at a Cincinnati or a Tennessee or a LSU,
Oh yeah. And I remember still to this day, like going in as a college freshman thinking like, all right, this can't be too bad.
Yeah.
And then the first time I got hit, we had a kid, he was transferred to our level he was actually an academic bounce back from the University of Akron, and he was a Division I safety, like played at that level for several years. And I think he was a junior or senior by this time. So like, been in the weight room for a lot longer, and I got hit. I'm like, it's a little different.
Coach,
a little different.
I lived that same exact story almost. We had a All-American safety that transferred in from Central Florida. Okay. And I remember the first time that's the first time I truly ever got taken off my feet and just could see my snot as I'm falling to the ground in slow motion. That's, quarterback was my roommate, but I still say to this day, he left me out to dry coming out the backfield. So,
Without a doubt.
Fullbacks couldn't run that fast, still can't,
Yeah.
So you get into it, you fall in love with it as far as being in college. You go back to college again. You have a pretty good internship with Cincinnati. Tell us what that was like.
Yeah, so prior to that experience, I was teaching science at a local high school in about 30 minutes north of Cincinnati, and was coaching football, loved it, and had at this point had taken over. It started with just the football team with their performance, because again, I had a powerlifting background, and kind of what they were doing, they knew there was a better way. So the head coach I worked for just kind of tossed me the keys and said, go with it. And that was my first introduction to training in the team setting. And then from there, some of the other sports saw what we were doing in the weight room and kind of what our performance program looked like. And so they started jumping on board with me. So at this time I was training football, girls soccer, both basketballs, baseball, softball. Was starting to training almost all the athletes that we had on campus. And we didn't have any kind of athletic period. We didn't have strength conditioning or weight training in the school day. So this was all after school. And at this point, I really felt like there wasn't anybody I could learn from in my setting.
Right.
Nobody was really passionate about the weight room. A couple of us had obviously played college sports and lifted ourselves, but nobody was really passionate about athletic performance. And there's really only so much you can learn online, and you can learn through videos and social media. So for me, I reached out to the staff at the University of Cincinnati asking if they had any opportunity for summer internships. And they, after talking to Coach Danny Felino, who's at Wisconsin now with Fickle and his staff, he was in charge of all the interns, and he said, we can work with your schedule. I needed 2 days a week where I could still go and coach football because I was our defensive coordinator, and I needed 2 days a week to be involved in that heavily. So they worked around my schedule, and I was down at Cincinnati 4 days a week. And so I was very gracious that they were able to kind of give me that flexibility that I needed to make it work. But yeah, just being around guys who that was their life. They had been through the grind. They all they played at a much higher level than I did. They interned somewhere, they GA'd somewhere, they came up through the system. Really taught me a lot about what transitioning my knowledge from powerlifting to team training, even though there were a lot of common threads there. There were still quite a bit of differences. And really that was my first exposure to a scientific side of training, right? They had Catapult GPS. They had a lot of the NORD boards. They had all the athletic training stuff that came into it too. So that was really my first exposure to, all right, well, there might be more to this than just 1 rep max strength and squat.
Bench, deadlift. Yeah.
But don't get me wrong. We got after it. We had a great time.
Oh yeah.
And we really pushed it and we trained for that. But that was that first exposure to it. So I'm very grateful for all of those aspects. And then obviously the internship hours are a grind. Even though they had some flexibility, it was still a bit of a grind there. And so that kind of taught me a lot about being able to push myself and being able to know the limits of really what I'm able to do too.
Yeah. So you had to spread yourself, I'm sure, pretty thin back then, man. It's you're working at a high school, you're, going over there to intern for free a few days a week, you're trying to balance different things, whether you may have made a few mistakes or didn't make mistakes or, whatever it may be. Is there kind of a piece of advice now at your age that you wish you'd have given that young Dr. Dan about, prioritizing or time management or anything like that?
I think the biggest things come just from perspective, and it's hard to understand that until you live it.
Right.
Until you've been to your boundary, until you've actually questioned yourself on all right, can I actually do this? Am I actually capable of handling everything that I have on my plate? And sometimes in some seasons of life, being able to actually push it a little bit too far. You don't know your limits until you've taken on a little too much. You know what I mean?
Dude, I'm 35 years old, and there's some days where I'm just like, all right, man, am I doing too much? Is this past my limit sometimes?
Oh yeah. And especially this time of year, with football, I mean, we're coaching a lot. We're coaching 6 and 7 days a week, and it's long hours. It's a grind, and you still have to attack it with passion and with energy. And I think the biggest thing for me that I would have told myself then is just knowing and being able to connect myself and ground myself into the why I'm doing it. Right? Like there's so many benefits that outweigh the hours and the time, the energy that we're spending in. I was married and had 3 kids when I was going through an internship. So very different than the typical story. So
Yeah,
I was
a
still
lot
going
different.
home and trying not to be a terrible dad and terrible husband. So like doing everything I could there. So yeah, there's definitely pieces that, where in seasons where I felt overwhelmed or felt like I was doing too much. But at the end of the day, again, as cheesy as it sounds, like you have to understand that there's a purpose behind what you're doing. There's a reasoning for it. There's an intention behind it. And whether that's personal growth, like I said, like expanding those boundaries of what I know I'm capable of, or, being an example for my kids, those are the things that keep me doing it and have kind of, as I look back, were the things that were critical to my ability to pursue through those.
Yeah, man, and that's something that I kind of live my life by with my kids because our kids are around the same age. We've talked about this before, and it's just like we're both gone along. JV, varsity. You're there on Saturday mornings or Sundays or whichever day you're working. Not just to us specifically, but our listeners out there. And it's while we may be gone, maybe when our kids are waking up or when our kids go to sleep, we're still gone, but in hopes that they realize, dad worked really, really hard to get us the life that we have. And I think, it takes them a while to realize that, but I think eventually they do, even though you often miss a lot of things. They do realize that dad's working hard, and they kind of take that mold of that hard work and lead by example type of hard work.
Man, that's been one of the things that's been really hard, for my wife and I as I started teaching and coaching and things like that. And we've always, ever since we first got married, we've always been really busy. And
Uh-huh.
we tell everybody that we talk to, like whenever this conversation comes up, we feel like we operate better kind of out of chaos, like in a season where there's a lot of things going on, because I think that for us, it makes us more intentional in that time that we do have together. And so that's been something that's really helped us, um, just kind of make sure that we are intentional with each other, intentional with our kids. And so she's unbelievable. She brings the kids to practice. She'll bring the kids around the team, the facility. We'll have the kids over to the house for dinner. We had that just happened just the other week, and just seeing our kids be around the kids that we're serving, and the community members that we're spending our days with and our life with, is huge for our kids. I want my kids to grow up in a world where our society itself is very selfish, and I want my kids to know that that's not the intent. That's not how it's supposed to be. And it was really encouraging. My son, my youngest, my 4-year-old, he's in pre-K, and when he went to school the other day, they were doing the stereotypical back to school, like ask them the 4 questions and take a picture to send home to mom and dad.
Yeah.
And one of those questions in the corner of the board was like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And most kids write like archaeologist and doctor and firefighter, and my son wrote a coach. And so
Yeah.
like just seeing that on there, I'm like, all right, cool. That was refreshing. This is the why it's happening for me.
Yeah, man. Mine's 6. He'll be 7 this weekend, actually. But he did the same thing. And this was for the first time he's done it. He's in 2nd grade, and what do you want to be when you grow up? Be a coach. Well, what's your goals this year? He's playing flag football right now. To be good at football, how do you get there? Got to work really hard. And that's the first time he said it. His dream before this was to be a cashier at Walmart. Was
There you
was his
go.
career goal? And it's like the simplicity of it. But he sees, because he gets to come up here with me every day, and that's the little things that matter to me. Is he rides to work with me every day? He's at practice every day, and anytime you can kind of steal those moments, and then when we get home, it's now sister's time because she doesn't get to do that every day. So,
Hmm.
it's the great thing about being in this profession and lifestyle is they got a bunch of big brothers and big sisters, and that's what I love about it, man. And talking about that, that's mentors for them, right? That they can see whether it's lead by example, whether it's how they carry themselves, how they wear. I guess I can say purple and gold because that's for both of us, right? So how
Yeah.
they wear that purple and gold, you know, who's someone in your life that kind of helped you get to this spot and kind of molded you as a mentor?
Oh man, there's been a lot. Like I mentioned before, there've been a lot of people that for no reason have answered the Twitter messages or the DMs or the emails that I've sent, and I'm unbelievably grateful for them in doing so. I think the first one that comes to mind was when I was powerlifting. I spent about 2.5, almost 3 years at the sweatshop under Laura Phelps and Shane Sweat
Yeah.
in Cincinnati, and West Side legends,
Yes,
absolute
sir.
West Side legends. And man, Queen Bee, as everybody knows her, she's legit. Like she's a killer when it comes to her lifts and her workouts, whether it's CrossFit now or powerlifting when she was a multinational or multi-lift world record holder in a lot of different weight classes. She was a killer when it came to that, but she's the nicest person on the face of the planet. So just being able to flip that switch and go back into athlete mode and then come back out as coach and things like that. And just all the lessons I learned from her on giving athletes room to fail, to do their own thing as a learning experience when she knew it was a safe environment, how to motivate people. Just so many, like the list goes on and on from her, and the way that she coached was very different than a Louis, even though like they coached within the same frameworks. So that was informative for me when I started coaching at the team level. I drew a lot of my experience from that. Then I think of guys like Ronnie Jankovic, who's the Southeast Regional Director for the NHSSCA. He's one of the big reasons I'm in the state of Georgia in the first place. When I reached out to him, trying to get strength conditioning at the school that I was looking for frameworks and looking for suggestions on how to get it into the school day for our athletes, and it just became where it just wasn't a thing. And by this time, my wife and I knew like this was what we were called to do. So, and that required us to move. And when it came time to do that, Ronnie really helped facilitate some of those conversations and connect me to the people. And he's an unbelievable person. Again, another one that's drastically invested in putting others over yourself. And he really walks that and does a great job of mentoring that. And guys like Stan Luttrell, he taught a whole session at NatCon this year, and he's just unbelievable man when it comes to his faith, his family, those two things. Like if you have any conversation with him, those conversations, those themes are above everything else that comes through his life. But also an unbelievable football coach, amazing strength coach. The list goes on and on. So like our conversations that I have with him are just amazing, and I come away with more every time we talk. And there's so many to list and so many people to name. We'd be here way longer than our planning periods let us. But man, there's a lot of people, and I think anybody in this profession, like nobody gets to be really good or great in this profession without a slew of people to steal stuff from.
Absolutely, man. And the mentorship thing and just paying it forward, that's one of the best things about this profession is helping others and paying it forward. And anytime you need help, doors are wide open. I was having a conversation with Ross Gardner recently, and he was telling me how you helped him get to Georgia and helped him kind of open up some doors there to get him closer to home where he's from in Virginia. And I think that's just great, man, that we meet these people along the way and create these relationships, sometimes where it might only be once a year. You and I, we only see each other about once a year, but we often text about different things. Mostly it's about shoes because we're both in this fell into this trap of this shoe game on Friday nights. But
man, I don't know about all this. I have 2 pair, and that's about it.
No,
and
okay.
one of them are red, white, and black, so I can't wear those anymore. I've got one good pair, and so I didn't get labeled a sneakerhead. My wife bought those for me for Father's Day, and I love them. But I'm really just jealous of your collection.
You need to fall into it. I just literally fell into it within the past week and a half because
that Facebook Marketplace got you.
I never buy anything for myself, man. And Facebook Marketplace got me because I've learned this in the past week is the shoe market is at a great spot right now. So if you find purple and gold shoes, pick them up. So
if you find those, I told you, if you find some retro 4s in metallic purple for a good price, size 12, let me know.
Yeah.
We might be able to work something out.
Yeah.
That's about all I can afford.
I'll get them over to you.
That's about the only list item I can have right now. But yeah, I mean, Man, Ross is good people. He's another one that is one of my go-tos when it comes to like data collection and management. Like he's built sheets off of like Dave McDowell's series, and then
Mm-hmm.
he's learned Google Sheets to edit it the way that he wants to. He's just an unbelievable person, and I think not to like pivot, but a lot of coaches that have been in the game for a long time, you hear them talk about how like the brotherhood of coaching isn't what it used to be, and I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions of coaching in general right now. Like whether it's football, strength conditioning, I think there's actually a really strong brotherhood. It just doesn't look the same way that it used to, and that's okay. That's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a little
Um,
bit different. It's not this. It's not the old school way of brotherhood anymore, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I'll give like if there's anybody that listens to this episode or anybody that follows me on social media, if they reach out to me, I'll give them anything that we do. I think there was a time where like it was guarded to an
Yeah,
extent, like,
like
hey,
it
I
was
can't
some
give
big
away my
secret.
secrets.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
like
and it's not. I hear, you talk about that. Like, Coach Moffitt is one of those people. He's a door wide open. Whatever you need, come visit, and he would
mhm,
rather you come visit than, call him up. But those guys are a dime a dozen, because they don't really do that. Some people just they want to guard everything like it's some big secret. And reality is, there is 1,000 ways to skin a
mhm.
cat, right? You know,
Absolutely. And that's grounded in your emotional security and what you do and how good you are at your job. Like if I'm insecure about what I do deep down, like I'm not going to give away my secrets because if what I do is actually as good as I think it is, then if I give it to this school down the street, they're going to be able to do it better than I am. But if
right.
I'm confident in my systems and I'm confident in my ability to deliver them, I can give you everything we do, but I also know that you're not going to be able to make the connections with the kids that I do that are going to help drive their motivation and drive the ability to implement our program. So I think that kind of the conversation there has a lot to do with it. And back to that brotherhood, like when we're in strength conditioning and football, for those of us that are like we've developed relationships on both sides. And so when, for instance, like when Ross's coach was text me, asked me if I knew anybody that would be interested. I was like, I know exactly the person who you need to hire. And I just love connect that opportunity to connect both worlds and both spheres of people that I know to bring them together because I love like when you have an opportunity to connect good people with good people, like they can do some really special things. And that's
Oh,
exactly what Ross is going to do at Effingham.
yeah. And you talk about that, and you talk about the success of people and seeing people succeed in your own athletes. How do you kind of define that, within strength and conditioning and even your own life and life goals, like holistically, how are we defining success in your world?
I think success can be a combination of both like tangible and intangible or quantifiable means or measures. Like obviously, we can define success of a season based off wins and losses, right? And that doesn't always mean 10-0. Maybe we had I don't know 5-5 talent, but we went 7-3, or maybe we had 10-0 talent, but we went 8-2. Right? Success takes different shapes based off the constructs and kind of the constraints of what's going on. So sometimes those are, I think, quantifiable in what we do. Um, but I think kind of more objectively, or sorry, the PhD side of me brain, that's done. It's gone. I'm not really thinking in those terms, but the more abstract version of success is really progress. Like, are we delivering and are we coaching our athletes and the people around us in a way that's going to support their ability to develop as people? Are they going to be functioning members of society? And even a greater, almost tangible version of that is when they're done with college or when they're on to that next chapter, do they come back to where they are because they loved their learning environment, they loved their growth environment, they loved the experience and the culture that you were able to support? And when that happens, and Cartersville is a place where that's a very frequent story. It's special, and special things happen. So I'm really really grateful to be a part of a community like this where people want to be elite in everything they do, but they also love the relational value of that common shared experience too. So I think there's a little bit of both of those things that kind of go into what, defining success.
Yeah, man, and that's the perfect way to do it. A lot of those, like we kind of mentioned earlier, is just a lot of your paychecks are seeing some of that success of these young men and women and them coming back. And a simple thank you goes a long way, even though we don't need it. That's not what we need, but a simple thank you, man, can make your day, your week, your year from some of these kids. One thing I'm real proud of is every day when our girls basketball team leaves the weight room, thanks coach, thanks for working us out today. And it's just that little simple thing is like, all right, we're doing something the right way here. The records sometimes may or may not show it, but we're doing something the right way where these kids are at least appreciative of what's going on, and
Yes.
how it may not be the same everywhere else.
Absolutely. And to kind of speak on that too, I tell our kids, and this is a conversation we've had before, if you really do mean that, if you're grateful and you're thankful for what we do, then you prove that by the way you work, by the way that the energy that you bring to it, the detail that you do, the level of accountability you hold other people to. And then it comes full circle, and now we're creating habits of building character and habits of success that, breed successful outcomes. So if you're grateful for the experience of what we're doing, if you're having fun in what we're doing, and you enjoy my class, well, then you're going to come into it with a better attitude. You're gonna encourage your rack mates when we're running fly 10s and somebody sets a PR. You're gonna be happy for them as well, because it's not just about my own growth; it's about our growth together as well. So I think those are things that definitely go into it too.
Yeah, and I love that, man. A quick story of ours just from this morning. We had a young man who, first time ever, he was late to anything, was special teams practice on Tuesday morning. Like, the kid never misses voluntary workouts, voluntary speed work, never misses practice, anything, and he was late on Tuesday morning, so he's got to sit out the first half. And, we're kind of picking at him, and the kids are picking at him. We hope that we're up by enough that he doesn't play the whole game. And, him being the kid he is, he's like, if we're up by 40 and I don't get to play, I don't get to play. I'll take my shoulder pads off and give everybody else water. And it's stuff like that, man, the selflessness, and just, that's where our success, I think, as strength coaches comes in, that, we're leading these kids down the right path. So talking a little
Absolutely.
bit about programming stuff, man, let's say, like we talked about, there is 1,000 ways to skin a cat, right? In your world, let's just say you have athletes 3 days a week, what's your ideal cycle look like, either both in season and off season, or one or the other?
So with high school and middle school athletes, I try to keep as much of the same framework as possible, like when we're talking week to week. So if you're coming in 3 days a week, I want you to know coming in kind of what exercises we're doing, or what the stimulus is going to be like. So if we're training 3 days a week, I want you to know that if it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you're going to come in on Monday and you're going to have a heavy squat. Then you're going to come in on on Wednesday, and let's say you're going to have a repetition effort bench press, or a dynamic clean. And then on Friday, especially if we're talking football, that's when I love our little bit heavier bench press. And then get a shrug and get a pump. I want as many of those themes to be similar across the week, because I think one of the aspects that a lot of people in strength conditioning deal with and have to factor in is the number of our kids that go to either private gyms and train with private trainers, or go to the basement with dad, or go on their own to, the local Y and go lift and do things. So, like, I don't see that as a negative. I just want our kids to understand how their training outside of our time together fits together with the training of what we're doing in class.
Yeah.
And I say that because I want them to have those memories of going to lift with dad, or going to the personal trainers to work on the things that we don't have time to get together with, and we don't have time to do within our program, especially if we are training 3 days a week. So I try to keep as many of those frameworks similar as possible. So, and I'm kind of like a modified tier system and modified 5-3-1. I mentioned earlier, I take bits and pieces and kind of piece together our training cycles based off different philosophies.
Yep.
I don't think that there's any one specific way that's right for anywhere, except for some little here and there that might fit one specific community. But for ours, I think a heavy squat on Monday, If we're talking football, let's say in season, a heavy squat on Monday, and we vary it. Half our room is going to be split up into our developmental groups. Those are the guys that are really freshman JV players that just need more time to physically develop. They're not ready for Friday night yet.
Yeah.
And their percentage and their volume is going to look different than the in-season guys who are playing on Friday night. And it's not because I don't like the developmental group. It's just that their needs are different. So I'm not going to give them, 6 sets of 3 at, 60% or 65 or 70% if we're doing a dynamic wave. I'm going to give them something a little bit more higher volume that's going to stimulate a little more growth. So I am going to split that based off the needs of what they have. Then we'll move to something unilateral, whether that's a rear foot elevated split squat, a front foot elevated split squat. If we're doing, Cossack squats or whatever the case may be, we're going to do something unilateral to augment and help our ability to produce force from a unilateral perspective as well. I noticed that when I started integrating more of the unilateral training, and Cody Mahler at Perry Perry High School in Georgia is a really good resource for stuff like this. But when I noticed that I introduced a lot more unilateral training, a lot of our injuries started going down because now you're addressing specifically some of those left versus right competencies. Mm-hmm. So now you can start eliminating some of the imbalances that are going to go into injury risk factors. Whether that's a jump, whether that's a lift, like I was saying, split squats or something along those lines, we're going to do a lower body unilateral on Mondays too. And then I really like shrugs, carries, and I know I'm speaking in a lot of general formats and general terms when it comes to some of the exercises, but I have just kind of a framework and I plug and play within that framework. So I know I want a heavy squat. I know I want a unilateral. I know I want a carry or some kind of upper back exercise there because that's something that's always needed to develop within every high school kid.
Yep.
I've never seen a high school kid that has a developed enough upper back where I can say, all right, cool. Yeah. That kid doesn't need shrugs, or that kid couldn't benefit from more of carries.
Right. Said no one ever. Right. And it's just,
exactly,
something you said that I'm a huge believer in is taking pieces from everywhere, right? From the 5-3-1 system, maybe some from a conjugate system, maybe some from Olympic lifting, from bodybuilding. And I'm along the same lines, man, as I'm real big into, we're building athletes. And every little bit of those philosophies can be put into this. There's everybody always says, oh, well, he's a football coach. He's just doing a football workout with the volleyball team. Like, what's a football workout? Like, you tell me what's a football workout? Because to me, it's just, we're building athletes. These are athletic workouts to help these kids become better athletes. And that's what I think is a big misconception too, man, is that people just don't understand that. And man, you talk about the unilateral work. I'm huge on the unilateral work. Really more so in the off season, we're real big on it. And then when we get in season, we're just fine tuning it. And, it might be a little bit less volume and a little bit less of our extravagant as far as like unilateral, and reverse
Hatfield
lunges.
Squat.
Yeah. Whatever it may be, Zercher lunges and things like that. We're a little bit less of that much intensity and more of your, Bulgarian split squats, ground split squats, things like that. They're a little bit less on the body, but we're still fine tuning it. And man, I love that. I think a lot of people neglect some of the unilateral work. They think that it's got to be, bilateral. We're squatting. A lot of that little stuff goes a long way.
And that the question and kind of the framework of the question, actually, I enjoy it because it's different than what I've had for a long time. Mm-hmm. I've been blessed for the last, I think going on almost 5 years now. I've had our athletes 5 days a week, or I've been in a situation where I see them 5 days a week. So I am very West Side based in I use the term max effort loosely here because it's not always max effort, but a max effort lower on Monday, a dynamic upper on Tuesday, dynamic lower on Thursday, dynamic upper Friday, and Wednesday being like a recovery or games-based or sometimes speed-based activity as well. So I operate in that, but even within that, I try to do something, especially with high school and middle school kids, I try to do something heavy, something fast, and something repetition every day. And I think that Monty Sparkman uses that. Yeah. And I think I stole some of that from him. And it definitely changes the game when you got high school kids, because the most important training variable for high school kid is frequency.
Yeah, man. You mentioned Monty, man. That's an invaluable resource right there, huh? Jeez.
My dog.
That guy
He's
has
way
some
stronger.
knowledge.
I'll go on record. He's way stronger than I am.
Yeah.
And because if I don't say that right now, I know he's going to be texting me later. So.
Yeah, man. He's an invaluable resource right there. So, you talk about some of this and, everything you do in the weight room and how you go about things and, how you would kind of mold and how you do mold your team. Is there something or your teams, I'm sorry, is there something that's a non-negotiable habit or practice you have, whether it's related to training or just life in general, that you think is significant and a contributor to the, well-being and success of our athletes?
I think there's several here that are just kind of themes.
Mm-hmm.
I think number one, and this one is personal for me, is that I want to live it. I think it's easier for us as coaches, whether we're strength coaches, football coaches, or some other sport coach. I think it's easier for us to hold our kids accountable to giving poor effort or having lack of consistency. If it's easier for us to hold them accountable to those things, if we are showing discipline and consistency, regardless of how that is. Like if you're a coach and you're a runner and that's what you love to do, well, then just be consistent with your running and let it be known that that's what you're doing. For me, I love to lift. Kids know that I don't power lift anymore, but I'm still very consistent in my lifting. I lift usually about 4 days a week. Now that I'm done with my PhD, it's about 4 days a week again. But they know that. And so they know that when I call them out for being tired and letting that get in the way of things, like they know that I'm also dealing with the same thing. So that makes that conversation a lot easier. So I start with that, and I start with living it from whatever that looks like in a coach's world and a coach's environment. But then when it comes to our kids, like they know for a fact, there's nothing I hate more than excuses. Mm-hmm. I think the vast majority of the issues that come from our kids when it comes to whether they're not upholding the standards or they're late or they're not showing up, either number one, they didn't communicate because X, Y, or Z, like they didn't communicate that to their ride, or their ride told them that they have work tonight and they can't get them to practice. Well, why didn't you text somebody on your team? Why didn't you text a coach asking for a ride? And why didn't you arrange for plans? Like, I think there's a communication breakdown, or they're not as committed to the team as they actually want to be. And they're just like, I need a day off. Well, all of those things are excuses. So like, I don't want excuses. I want you to own whatever it is. And I think a lot of issues that arise within programs and issues that arise, honestly, for adults is just a lack of ownership when you mess up.
Yeah, accountability, responsibility, man. It's a big thing.
I'm 33 years old. I've worked in multiple aspects of what like a quote unquote professional career is. And everywhere I've been, if you take ownership for your mistakes, it really makes it hard for them to be upset with you. I got in trouble for something like 3 years ago at my previous school, and my boss came to me and said, "Why did you do this?" And I said, "I'm sorry. Here's why I did it. I didn't realize it was a big deal. I won't make that mistake again." And then she responded with, "It's really hard to be upset with you when you take accountability, when you take ownership." I'm like, well, I'm not going to sit here and say like it was his fault. Like it was my fault.
That's one of the biggest things I think not only kids, but like you said, adults miss out on, man, is that, accountability and responsibility part. If you own up to it, life gets much easier, rather than, this little excuse or this little white lie, and then it snowballs into bigger things and it's more issues for you. It's just accountability and yeah, I did it, or yeah, this is my mistake and I'm going to do better next time. I think that's huge, and something that I'm a big believer in is that I wear it, man. If I messed up, I let the kids know, like, guys, this was my fault. Like I had to apologize to some of these seniors. I look back on some of these workouts we did 2 and 3 years ago, and I'm like, what was I thinking?
What was I thinking?
Yeah, like, everybody does it, right? We look back and we're like, this was stupid. Like, what are we doing here? Like, this was a good idea back then. And, kind of that ownership part, and it makes life easier. And it, again, back to that mentorship and back to that seeing, leading by example, is like these kids see that, like, man, if coach is a grown man and in the sense of, older than what we are, and he can own up to it, well, so can I for the little things. One of the biggest pet peeves of mine is when kids say my bad.
Yes.
Well, yeah, man.
Of course it's your bad.
It ain't
it's
my
not
bad.
His bad.
Yeah.
It ain't her bad. It's
that
obviously
drives
it's your
me up
bad.
the wall, man. That really, like, that gets me. It is like, my bad, and
My bad gets us beat.
yep, my bad gets us beat, man. So,
And I'd say the last thing too, I want to make sure I kind of wrap up that question for you. And this is one that, if anybody that I coach or have coached in the past uh, listens to this, they'll know, like, I'll be wrong if I don't mention it, is that just a constant growth mindset, or the pursuit of being elite, the pursuit of being the best that you can. Whether we're talking physically, whether we're talking emotionally, mentally, academically, I want our kids to pursue whatever they do. And I tell my own kids this all the time, like, anything worth doing is worth giving everything you have to it. And if we don't practice that now, then you're going to miss opportunities as adults. And so that's whether we're talking about making excuses for something that happened that's out of your control. Like, there's a lot of scenarios and situations that come into life that you have zero control over. Who somebody else hires, who moves into our school, who moves out of our school, who the players that show up to our program. Like, not in control of any of those things, but that's not going to stop us from choosing to chase our best effort, chase being elite. I think there's a lot of our kids that come into our programs and have home lives that really struggle. And it's true. And I can say that because I come from one. I came from a single family home where my dad was incarcerated very frequently and struggled with substance abuse and all those things. And so, like, I understand all of those things, but at the same time, that's not an excuse for us to fail because of those things. Like, I'm not going to allow those things to define my lifetime of success because something happened to me that I wasn't in control of. So our ability to, again, take ownership of our attitude and our effort, but then take that ownership, transition it over to a drive and a motivation that drives us toward being elite or being excellent and giving everything we have for the sake of our team and for our growth.
Yeah, man, that's just the perfect way to word it. I mean, there's no other way to say it. This is the perfect way to word it, and how you just go about things and handle business. In your experience as a strength and conditioning coach, who's the most important person or the closest person you need to work with on campus?
Man, on campus, I think first and foremost is the other members of our PE department. Obviously they're the ones I'm interacting with every day. They're the ones that, as I started here at Cartersville, that I rely on heavily for how we do things, what our community expects, what our kids do well, what they don't do well, and kind of establishing some of those norms. Our O-line coach works here in the building with me, and he's absolutely phenomenal, and he's one of the most, like, beloved members of the community. So having him on our side, and having him and using the value that he brings is extremely important to me. And he has a ton of experience that I can learn from. And then from there, I'd say, obviously the head football coach, the AD, the principals, and the other administrators in your building. I rely heavily on them for, the processes of how we do things, the standards, the structures, the just general SOPs of what we do. And then obviously, like, we're going to inevitably have issues when it comes to, like, behavior or parent complaints or, whatever the case may be. So, like, those are the people that I want them to know me really, really well, so that if something gets taken out of context and they think, like, oh, Coach Mullins yelled at this kid for this, and this, and like, nah, that doesn't sound like what he does. Like, he usually does something because, like, he usually yells or says something because a kid didn't do their job, or a kid was blaming somebody else for their circumstances or something like that. So having those relationships ahead of time really, really help us.
Right, and the best way to live is just being yourself at all times, right? I mean, you're not going to get anything different than the way you are day in and day out. It's not a show. It's not, treat people differently. It's everybody's the same. And, while we may get onto them, we're going to love them at the end of the day, no matter what.
Oh, yeah. I tell our kids all the time, like, if I yell at you, it's because I care about your success, and I care enough not to let you stay where you're at.
Yeah, I had a coach in college. Our head coach told us, if I'm not coaching you, that's when you need to worry, is that I don't see, my time is valuable. If I don't talk to you, that's when it's an issue.
That's right.
So, how closely do you work with athletic trainers? I mean, do y'all have them on campus, or are they sublet out? I know some places are different.
We actually use both. So we have one that is full time employed through the district, and they teach like an athletic training course or pathway
Yeah.
at the high school, and so they work mostly with the non football sports. And he does a good job of making sure, obviously taking inventory, and he's in charge of all the supplies, and the trainers and managers that we have all come from him. Then we contract out an additional one because we just have too many student athletes for one individual
Right.
to be able to service. So we contract out another one, and he handles primarily football when it comes to our actual injuries and rehab and things like that. So like if a kid's hurt and can't practice, but yet we know that we're eyeing them for return in 2 weeks or 4 weeks, they're going to spend a lot of time with him, and he's going to be in there in the weight room or in there in his room doing therapy or doing some kind of cardio modality, so that way when they do come back, they're not completely out of shape, and now we're probably going to be at risk for injury again because they're out of shape or they're not prepared for the demands of what we're doing. So we do have two on campus.
Yeah. And I think those are invaluable people to work with. I know I work closely. We actually are blessed where we have 3 on campus at all times. We're the biggest by population school in the state of Louisiana. And, to have those resources that we can bounce ideas off each other and kind of see, what's going on with these athletes, what sport is kind of hit the injury bug over another, and are we is it the volume too high in between the skill work and the weight room and the conditioning? Is all that too much to where we got to kind of ride the wave and dial back a little bit? And I think that having an athletic trainer on campus is one of the most important things you can have, and an invaluable resource when it comes to that, when it comes to rehab, when it comes to planning out whole seasons. So that's something that I think both of us are blessed with. Not everybody has that blessing. So tell me this, man. Give me a great story. Like I need a great strength conditioning story. Something that you can tell us. You don't have to name names here, but I need a great story, man, before we get out of here.
Man, I think two come to mind. Two big ones come to mind. Like I think we all have little ones where, like I think of dressing up on favorite movie character day, and I dressed up as like Joe Dirt or something like that, wig and all. It was awesome. Yeah. Kids were like, what is happening right now? Or like we decorated the weight room for Christmas and put up Christmas lights and stuff, and had like an ugly Christmas sweater party for our last day of school. But I think really, man, 2 of them, and we talked earlier about like that grind of being in an internship. And I was, again, a fairly unconventional intern as an adult with 3 kids. And I'm in there with like 22, 23-year-olds. And man, there was this one day where we knew for the next day, we needed a bunch of our plates for prowler pushes up on the game field, right? And all the prowlers were upstairs, but the plates weren't in a convenient spot. There was no indoor at the time. Cincinnati's opened a new one since then, actually this year, and opened a new weight room. But the weight room was like in the basement, almost underneath the stands. So you had to go up an elevator, out the door, around the stadium, and then down the entrance where like the EMS vans would pull up if you need them to get field access. And so we knew we had that the next day. So we needed, I can't even remember, I think it was like 40 or 50 plates for all of the prowlers. And we load them up on this cart. We take them up. We get them out the elevator. We're like team pushing. There's like 5 of us like driving this, like just pushing as hard as we can all the way around the stadium. And we get around to that ramp and where it starts to go down. And one unnamed individual that is at North Dakota State now as a strength coach decided it would be a great idea to just go ahead and like jump on it and ride it down like a shopping cart.
Ooh.
And I'm sitting there like, this isn't going to go well. I know it's not. And it doesn't get maybe 10 yards and it starts to turn. And like you see it in slow motion, and then all the plates just spilled out everywhere down the ramp. It took us forever to load them. It took us forever. It's like 5 o'clock. We've been in since 4 a.m. Like it's 5 p.m. and I just want to go home. Like I'm so angry. And we had another kid takes his phone out and he just starts recording. He's like, hey man, here's a big old mess that we got to clean up now. And he starts one by one. Was it you? And this guy's laughing. He's like, no, it wasn't me. Is it you? Like, no, it wasn't me. Then he gets around to me. I'm like, can we just not, like, can we just go?
Can we just
And
clean this up?
man, I wanted to hurt the individual that decided to jump on that thing, man.
Man,
It made so much extra work for us, but they're all doing good things, and we got it loaded up, and we had a good day the rest of the week. But in that moment, I was not a happy camper.
it's funny how you have those stories from those times where you interned or GA'd or anything like that. They kind of come back to mind. It's like, oh man, those days. Do I miss them or do I not miss them? I'm probably more the fellowship than some of that stuff, right?
And I think the first time I had another coach come visit, like there was a local coach, he was a wrestling coach they were starting strength conditioning in their class. He came over to visit, and this was when I was at Loganville. And, I, for whatever reason, and I'm a yeller anyway. It's not like I was putting something on that I wasn't. But I was ripping into our guys for something. And then what I didn't realize was that somebody in a rack right behind me had wheeled their bench out, setting up for the next one. And when I was done, I started to back up and turn to go turn the music on and start it over. And I fell backwards over this bench.
Oh, no.
And it was like dead silence. Everybody's like afraid to laugh because they're like, whatever. And then they ended up, like, when I got up, they just all started busting out laughing. And the guy's like, oh, I actually did it last week. He's like, I did it last week too. I was like, all right, cool. You're probably just telling me that to make me feel better. But
At that point, all you can do is laugh, I'd imagine,
Yes.
man. It's just like, all right.
like, just get to work.
Yeah.
Nobody
Dang
even
it.
remembers what I said 5 minutes ago.
Dang
or
it,
what I
let's
was
go
yelling
get back
about.
in bed and restart this day. You can't do that, right? So, look, I got 3 more off-the-wall ones for you, man. It's maybe off the wall, may not be, but, just different things to get in the mind of Dan Mullins. So,
Scary place.
yeah, let's say you're getting ready for competition, whether it was a power to meet, basketball game, football game, anything like that, and you could watch one movie before that competition. What's that movie going to be?
Ooh. One movie. I would say probably something like a Black Hawk Down,
Okay.
or what's the one with Mark Wahlberg? Shooter. I don't know
Shooter.
why. I love that movie. Like, it's not athletic, it's not war based. It's just, I think it's a really good movie.
It's a great movie, man. It really is. I do like that movie. Every time it used to come on TV, man, that was a good one to watch.
The spinoff's decent, the TV show.
Yeah, I haven't watched it, man. It's hard for me to get into something that was so good. Like, I don't want it to mess it up,
It's like the sequel to The Hangover. Like, should have just stopped at number 1.
Dude, The Hangover, every time I watch it, it doesn't matter. It's been out for, almost 20 years now. It's just as funny.
I have to change my answer.
Okay.
I have to change my answer. If I'm being 100% honest, it's probably The Other Guys.
Oh, another
Like,
great
I
Mark
love that
Wahlberg movie.
Yes.
Oh,
Mark
Coach.
Wahlberg and Will Ferrell.
The
Got to get a little
scenes-
desk pop.
Yep. The scenes where he tells the story about his alter ego about being Gator. Oh, I die
Gator.
every single time when I see
So
that.
yeah, it's probably going to be a movie like that. Yeah.
So you're a
I'm
guy
more of
that,
a comedy guy.
Yeah, you can relax before games, and
No,
you're not uptight.
I can't.
No?
I am very uptight.
So does
But
that get you?
if I play into it or anything like that the night before a game, like, I need something to take my mind off of it.
Yeah. So tell me about kind of similar question. Is there a book you recommend or a quote that maybe kind of gets the mind right? Something that's an easy read that you can kind of get going.
I love Conscious Coaching by Brett Bartholomew.
Okay.
It was kind of the first, actually suggested to me by Ronnie Jankovic. It was one of the first books I read on coaching that wasn't like X's and O's or wasn't, sports science or mechanics or anything like that. It's really about just like relating to kids and how, like, identifying kids' archetypes based off their behaviors and their attitudes to know what they need to hear and like how to motivate each one or how to get the best out of them. So that was one that's really helped me throughout the years.
That's a good one, man. I need to check that one out. I haven't read it. I've heard a lot of good things. I just haven't read it.
Super easy read, big font, great for guys like me.
Hey, Dude, nothing like a big font book, man. Those are the best
Could use
ones.
some more pictures. Use some more pictures, but
like the middle of the book, just kind of like a layer of like pictures, like
no, like within the text to make you feel like you're reading a lot of pages.
Right. Yeah, no, I love that. All right, man. Last one for you. Let's say that you are stranded on an island, and you can bring one piece of weight equipment. This can be something that's functional and can be used for other things, or something that you're truly gonna get a little pump in with. What's that piece of weight equipment gonna be?
I'm basic. I'm just gonna say a barbell. Like
Barbell.
Enough, some weights, but
Yeah.
a barbell. Like I feel like I can do enough there, and like I think it's a pretty versatile weapon. Like if I'm getting attacked by something on that island, like I think it's fairly good enough to defend myself with. So
Yeah.
I would say barbell.
You're gonna have to get some coconut oil, get that barbell, oiled up to where it doesn't rust, huh?
If I've worked out with a lot of I've worked out with a lot of rusty bars in my time. I'm fine with it.
I get it, man. Well, look, Coach, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your day. I know that we've tried to get this one going a few times. We're 1-1 on this one here, but it's been a great conversation, man. I've loved every second of it, getting to your mind, letting the people know, how you do things over at Cartersville and how you've done things everywhere you go with a high class and a lot of intensity. You got some social medias, man. Our listeners can drop you a line from time to time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again for having me on. I've loved the podcast as a whole. For a long time, I've listened to, I think, almost every episode that's been out. And then now, obviously, that you're taking over and branding it and getting it rolling again. I was super excited when you told me about it and then asked me to come on. So really, really excited about that. I'm on Instagram and Twitter at X as Coach Mullins, PhD. It's Mullins, not Dan Mullin, the really famous UNLV coach. So
yeah, that's a big
Mullins,
time guy
PhD.
right there. So
I can't tell you the number of kids that send me their film saying like, Coach, would love to get your thoughts on my film. I'm like, I'm not that guy.
Coach, that's a good. I wish we would have gotten to that conversation. That's a good one. So, well, look, man, I appreciate it again. Have a good rest of your day. Have fun coaching those kids up in the weight room.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Absolutely, brother.
That's a wrap on another episode of the Moffitt Method Podcast. We hope you found today's discussion enlightening and empowering as you continue your journey in sports and strength and conditioning. Before you go, make sure to follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, where we share more tips, behind-the-scenes content, and updates on upcoming episodes. Just search for Moffitt Method Podcast and hit that follow button. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite listening platform. That way, you'll never miss an episode. And if you enjoyed today's show, we'd love it if you could leave us a review or share this podcast with a friend. It really helps us out. Thanks for tuning in. And remember, the key to success is just one more workout away. Until next time, stay strong and stay inspired.